The Seminoles are back at it, this time on the road against Wake Forest on Saturday. It's your Nole Insiders game preview delivered by UPS. I'm Lane Hurt along with Tim Linnefeld. Tim, an 0-2 start to the season for the Noles. Big week to bounce back for Florida State.
Absolutely. You want something to feel good about, right? It's been a difficult start to the season, a weird start to the season between losing DeAndre Francois, losing a game against ULM, and having your schedule all reshuffled and rearranged. So for the first time this season, Florida State actually has something resembling a normal routine in the regular season as far as a game, week of practice, another game. So for Florida State, I think it's just a matter of coming out, playing well, banking that first win. You know, Jimbo Fisher was asked just a few minutes after the NC State game, he was asked about Florida State's preseason goals, expectations, all those things that people were sort of dreaming about in August, and said, look, whether you like it or not, those are the kind of things that we can't really be thinking about right now. The team can't be thinking about right now. You got to focus on Wake Forest, go up there, get your first win, turn right back around, come back home and play Miami, get your second win there, and keep building from there. And then at the end of the season, you can sort of stop, take a look around, and see where that lands you. But right now, focusing on big picture isn't really where Florida State is. They're focused really on sort of the micro level, and that starts with Wake Forest.
Yeah, and this Demon Deacon team, probably one of the best the Seminoles have seen in years. Let's take a look at them for a little bit. 4-0, 1-0 in ACC play. 35th in the nation in total defense, 58th in the nation in total offense. That a little skewed because last year their offense was so bad. They've really made strides there. They've scored 151 points, their most ever through 4 games in school history. And of course, QB John Walford, he's a senior. He has 8 passing touchdowns, 3 rushing touchdowns. He leads the team in both categories. This is a much improved team over the past couple of years.
Yeah, and you know, in a way, it kind of reminds you of the Wake Forest teams in the mid-2000s, back when they were winning ACC titles and contending for ACC titles and coming up and staying in Florida State every so often. You have seniors in important positions, a senior quarterback, a senior tight end who's one of your bigger threats in the passing game, and also seniors on defense and as always, and what sort of actually has been typical of Wake Forest over the last several years, pretty good on defense. They've always been usually pretty stout, but like you mentioned, their offense has struggled so much, it eventually compromised the defense. So what we're seeing this year, and at least through the first quarter of the season, is that Wake Forest offense is defense to stay on the field, give those guys a breather. So, yeah, I agree with you. It's maybe the best Wake Forest team we've seen in a while, 4-0, full of confidence, and, you know, seniors who have seen some battles before, who have seen Florida State before. You know, John Wolford's not going to see that spear on the other sideline and all of a sudden, you know, start panicking the way a freshman might. He's familiar with these types of plays, familiar with the type of athletes that Florida State has. So I expect Wake Forest to be, you know, pretty confident and full of belief, especially playing at home.
The Seminoles offensively, look at their second game under James Blackman. He played very well against NC State, you know, made a few of those freshman mistakes, but overall I'd say Seminole fans had to be impressed with what they saw from Blackman. What's the next step for the offense against this Wake Forest team who's done very good against the pass? They lead the ACC in passing efficiency defense.
Well, the two biggest things to me, one, I'd like to see Florida State establish the run game a little bit more. That's one thing that against both Alabama and NC State. They ran the ball well at times. Cam Akers especially was able to rip off a few long runs. But the overall consistency that you would like to see and the steadiness of that running game and sort of the confidence of knowing that if you have 3, 4, 5 yards to pick up, you know you're going to be able to get them on the ground. We haven't seen that yet, so you'd like to see that, particularly against the Wake Forest defense. It's pretty good against the pass, and you'd like to think that if you're able to get Jacques Patrick and Cam Akers going, that can only serve to help James Blackman. The other thing, of course, and it's been a theme really all week and all season, is the red zone offense. Florida State's had 8 trips to the red zone in 2 games. They've only scored 2 touchdowns in those 8 trips. Obviously, that's 25%, and that's a number that just has to come up. So, look, and the ironic thing is Florida State's offense, I feel like, has actually been pretty good between the 20s, and if you expand a little bit further, in that Alabama game, you know, they were inside Alabama's 35-yard line pretty often. Against NC State, there were some other drives that ended deep in NC State territory that don't quite register as red zone attempts. You just got to get better at finishing, whatever the case may be, execution, sharpness, whatever the idea is that needs to get better. You'd like to see it because we've certainly seen the capability, we've seen the potential. It's just a matter of going in there and finishing those drives.
Now, moving over to our key matchup, Wake Forest's tight end Cam Serenay, one of the best in the NCAA. He leads the team in receiving touchdowns this year versus the Florida State linebackers. Don't know if Matthew Thomas is going to play, but there's going to be a lot of other guys who are going to have to step up. If he doesn't, and help cover Serenade.
Well, exactly right. And you mentioned Matthew Thomas. We don't know his status yet. Jacob Pugh, we know, is going to miss the first half of the game. So you're going to be looking at the likes of Adonis Thomas and Emmett Rice and some of those guys going to be going up against maybe one of the best tight ends in the ACC, and if not the country. He's a really talented guy. The type of tight end, you see it all the time in modern football, a really difficult matchup for opposing defenses because, maybe a little bit too fast for a linebacker, a little bit too big for a defensive back. And so for some of Florida State's younger and less experienced linebackers, that's going to be a difficult matchup, especially if Matthew Thomas can't go, and at least until the second half when you get Jacob Pugh back in there. Remember in fall camp and in the spring, one of the things we heard about Jacob Pugh was just how good he was at being versatile, that he could get down and support the run defense and rush the passer, but that he was also really good at dropping back into coverage. That's the kind of thing that you would maybe miss in the first half, and hopefully when he gets back in the second half can sort of plug that gap.
There you have it, Seminole fans. Big one for the Noles this weekend up in Winston-Salem. That game is at 3:30 on Saturday. And, of course, we have everything you need leading up to that game. Make sure you read Tim's First and 10 article on Seminoles.com right now. Always a great preview for the game. And, of course, we'll have everything you need afterwards. 3 keys to victory on Saturday morning as well. Let's play some football back-to-back weeks. I think that's really important for
what
this
a concept. We forgot what that feels like.
Absolutely. Well, this has been your Nole Insiders game preview delivered by UPS. I'm Lane. This is Tim. Go Noles.